My name is Wilfred Morton, and today I will walk you through a penetration test I performed against the Metapolis Table 2 virtual machine. This presentation demonstrates key steps in identifying vulnerabilities, assessing risks, and applying system hardening strategy to protect critical assets. This hands-on activity is part of a benchmark assignment in my cybersecurity program. Part A. Penetration testing and planning. Yeah, I started with defined scope targeting only on Metasploitable 2 VMs within a local lab environment, using a Kali Linux machine as the attacking system. I ensure the network connectivity between the two VMs and prepare the environment by creating system snapshot for rollback. My my primary goal was to identify exploitable services and recommend security improvement. I used a series of tools for this test. Nmap for port scanning, Nikto for web vulnerability scanning, OWASP for application level analysis, and Nexus for digital vulnerability reporting. Penetration test value and procedural failure. Penetration testing is vital because it simulates area road attack and helps organizations proactively identify weaknesses before adversary can exploit them. It's an essential part of any security program. If procedure for example, a tool crash or scan data is lost, I document the issue, assess if this failure affects the result, and repeat the test when necessary. Having a flexible but throughout approach is key to successful testing. Now let's just start with scanning tools. The main scanning tools that we use, as I said before, we use three scanning tools, but we're going to start with Nmap scan. The first command that we ran it was the nmap-sn, the service network. This command helped to discover all the IP address of the network element. That's why you can see on this picture that I identify our metaprostable IP address, who is 192.168.56.6. After that, I run the command nmap-o for to detect the operating system running on Meta Stable 2. Here you can see that the the OS is Linux 2.6.x, and then we run the service scan by using the command nmap-sv to scan for to scan for all open port of Metapolis 2 and determine what services and version are running of those. If you see this screenshot, you're gonna see here. Okay, see the port 445 is open. We see that it's NetBIOS SNS, and then when you see the port 513 is open, is the login point. Is this part we're gonna use it to break the system and to get the root access on the Metapolis. And we have a more port 3386 for MySQL, 2321 for FTP, 2046 for NFS. Okay. Now after that we run an aggressive scan. Is nmap-a. plus the IP address of our Metapolis server. So here, this command include OS detection, version detection, and script scanning and trace route, as you can see of those picture. Okay, let's go with the second scan tools, Inito. The Inito scan expose critical web server issue. Here in our case, Apache server was outdated and allowed directory listening, which could reveal sensitive files to an attacker. Sorry. It also lacked security header and exposed the default credential, making it a low effort target for attacker. Okay, another tool that we use is WhatsApp scan. You use WhatsApp with WhatsApp with WhatsApp. I analyzed the web application hosted on port 80 on the web application. I found a reflected cross-site scripting XSS vulnerability and missing security header like X-frame option and container security policy. This issue make the application susceptible to client-side attack. Here, if you see this the screenshot you see here on the alert, you have the path traversal, you have absence of NTCR RF token, you have application error disclosure, you have content security policy header not set, and more and more. That's all the vulnerability that we have. Okay. Now the last tools that we use is Nexus. Around Nexus vulnerabilities scan and confirm multiple high and critical vulnerabilities. For example, you have the VSCP services had a non-backdoor vulnerability, and Samba had multiple buffer overflow weaknesses. Nexus Pro provide CVSS score and remediation advice that help shape my risk assessment. Okay, on this picture, we see when we run the Nexus, the Nexus scan, you have multiple vulnerabilities. You have critical vulnerability, high scalability vulnerability, medium vulnerability, and low vulnerability. And we're gonna explore this some of those one in the next in the next slide. Okay, vulnerability one: blind shell backdoor detection. A shell is a shell is listening on the remote port without any authentication being required. An attacker may use it by connecting to a remote port and sending a command directory. This is what we use here. If you see here, I use the telnet, and then I enter the IP address of our metabolist, and then I use the port open of this vulnerability is 1524. Here you see, I log in inside and I run the command IG. Then here I can run everything. I can install what I want because here I'm already in the system. Vulnerability to VNC server. The VNC server running on the remote host is secure with a weak password. Yeah, in our case here, we see our password here. You can see on the picture. The password is the default one. Is password. I use the one. Then I launch the VNC viewer, and then I log into our Metapolisis to use the password that our Nexus got from by scanning by scanning the server, and then here you can see that I have already logged in. They said Apache Tomcat APG. Here, a remote on on authenticate attacker could exploit this vulnerability to read web application file from vulnerability server. Okay. Vulnerability 4. We have SSL version 2 and 3 protocol detection. The remote service are accept connection encrypted using SSL 2 and SSL 3. This version of SSL are affected by several cryptographic flaws, including an insecure packaging chain with CBC ciphers, insecure session in a negotiation, and a resumption chains. Okay, next vulnerability that we got is canonical Ubuntu. Add note or script to help you learn your message query. Here you you can see that the remote service accept connection encrypted using SSL as SSL 2.20 and SSL 3.0. This version of SSL are affected by the several cryptographic flaws, including ensure padding, ensure session. As of this vulnerability is the same like the SSL version 2 and SSL version 3. Here we have the ISC bind service downgrade reflected DOS. Here, description. You can say according to the self-report version, the the instance of ISC bind are running on the remote name server is affected by performance downgrading and reflected DOS vulnerability. This is due to bind DNS not sufficiently is secure. Down here, man of the middle can see and get all the information. Samba Barrow vulnerability, that's those that we have talked before, is an NSS share word readable. That's the 9 vulnerabilities that I just choose to talk about. Now, let us explore when we were doing service scan, we saw that the port 512 was open for login. Is that port that you're gonna attack to get the root access? If you see here, the first thing I did, I installed the LSH client by typing the command apt install LSH client. After that, I log in. I say r login dash l root, and then I put the IP address of my main Metropolis CPD, and then you see he let me in. And then when I got in, yeah, he let me in. Yeah, you see, I have a root access, like you see a root Metropolis. That means I'm getting root access. Now, on the next slide, I'm going to show you how I did to create an user and user access. Okay, here in this lab, as I told you, I add a user. I run the command user add dash ou space 0 dash g 0, and then I add the user Mocto. Here is the command that I run, user add dash and then after that I I create the password Mocto, and then I enter the strong password here. That and you see a password updated successfully. That I just create. Now on this lab, I log in the Meta sports table too with that with the user that I just created. Yeah, you see Mocto login. You see Mocto is the user that I just created, and then I the password I enter the password. Now you see I'm here root access. I got a root access. Then this is example of attacker. I just attack. I created. I attack the port A513, and then I create the user. Risk assessment and gap analysis. There were several issues that leave the system vulnerable to exploitation. The, the analysis showed that some security issues were related to policies such as poor password, yeah, the poor passwords or RNC server, and mismanaged user permission. Many of the components of the system are out of date, which leave them vulnerability to exploitation. Vulnerable to exploitation. Poor services and poor management leave misconfigure and exploit a service that can be exploited to take control of the system. Based on the scanning information and as well as a current trend, Nessus rate many of the exploit as critical. Exploits could be used to take control of the system to steal information and even as a tools to launch other attacks. Countermeasure. As a countermeasure, we, you can see we can disable services. Example FTP, Telnet, or regenerate SSH, SSL, and OpenVPN keys, or update all the server solution used within the system. Find a solution to migrate the system to a newer version of Linux that actively receives support and security update. Ensure that password policy require more complex passwords that are updated regularly. Configure open ports so they are no longer vulnerable. Utilize the firewall to filter traffic and secure port. Expected results. Current attack vector will be reduced. Vulnerability scan will show fewer results. The method to use to gain root control in Jala will be block. That's the expected result. Now let's just see what I implement. Okay, I updated the VNC password again. Here you see on the beginning when we use the Nexus scan we have and we detect the password of the VNC server. That was password. It was a default password. But here now we update that password and put the strong one. We use the command VNC password and then we put a strong one, as you can see on this picture. It's using file configuration. When all the port was open, I comment configuration file. As you can see, I'll comment the login. Yeah, I comment the login and tell it that means you cannot tell it the server anymore. You can access it, but not tell it. Okay, and then I enable the firewall and Enable the firewall and block all the port by default and allow SSH and FTP. As you can see here, you see a UF firewall default denied. That this command enable all the firewall. That means all the ports are blocked by default. Now here, I run the command UF EU firewall allow SSH. This command allow SSH port, SSH protocol, and then I allow the HTTP protocol too. That means I allow the port 80 and the port 22. Reflection and listen. I choose this change because they had the most significant impact at the lowest cost. Disability and remove a critical risk. Updating a credential close a major access point. And fixing the Apache configuration help reduce information exposure. The vulnerabilities are affected increase CVEs tied to Telnet and default Apache behavior. My expectation mostly are aligned with actual outcome. Yeah, but I learned that some other services cannot be fully hardened without upgrading the system entirely. Key lesson include always change. That means key lesson include. That means you will always change the default password. No use the default credential on your system. Disable unusual service. That means when you scan the port, you have to block all the protocol that you are not using. Perform regular vulnerability scan our system every maybe you can say every week or every 3 days. I don't know. Conclusion. This penetration test and Metasploit to provide vulnerability hands-on experience in identifying vulnerability, assessing risk, and implementing count measurement. Why this was a control lab, the same methodology applied to real-world system. Thank you for watching my presentation.